Hello and welcome to yet another lecture number 33, and this is on the reform movements and indigenous voluntary organizations which contributed to healthcare during the colonial period. So this again comes under the broader topic of non-state actors, non-state interventions. So we already saw the role of missionaries and most of them came from outside, though they took local roots and became indigenized and continue to this day. But these are indigenous voluntary organizations and movements. Um, so even as the colonial state constantly fell short of its responsibilities towards healthcare and broader social issues like women and children welfare, the arena opened itself to fruitful roles by these kinds of social reform movements and organizations within India. So in this lecture, we'll have a select sampling just to give an idea of, so it's not going to be exhaustive because there are several of them in several different parts of India. So just to give an idea of what were they and what were the various kinds of interests and the initiatives they showed. So one is the Ramakrishna Mission, which is again already famous for several reasons in India. So they had their part to play apart from all their spiritual works for which they are more commonly known. So this mission was started in 1897, inspired by the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Swami Vivekananda. And it also like other missionaries that we have been talking about. So it involved itself in those kinds of social activities like famine relief, flood relief, and medical relief, especially during outbreaks of plague, cholera, and smallpox kind of epidemics. So, for example, so Swami Vivekananda spearheaded a sanitary mission which inspired young Bengali men who were led by Swami Vivekananda's famous disciple, Sister Nivedita, to save plague victims by directly going to their areas and giving them succor. A more direct and enduring example is the mission's home of service. So the roots of this home go back to 1900 when three young men at Varanasi who were inspired by the teachings of Vivekananda laid the foundation for this. So looking at the suffering of the people. So in fact, so they not only looked and felt compassionate, so they actually proactively went searching for them wherever they were in the gullies, the streets, roads, and the riverside ghats, wherever they were. So they went out proactively and brought such suffering and helpless and sick people and took care of them in the what was called the orphanage or the Poor Men's Relief Association. So that was the original name, and whatever fund was required for getting medicines as well as bed, clothes, and other medical accessories, all of it. The funds for all of it was got by either donations voluntarily given or by these disciples going and begging from people. So of course, though these people, the sick people stayed in this orphanage. So when proper treatment was needed, so they were taken to the government hospital. And but then when that was not very sustainable, so they felt the need to start their own small dispensary, which was started in a rented building in 1900. So this kind of work impressed Swami Vivekananda when he actually made a visit to Varanasi. So he then renamed it as the Ramakrishna Home of Service or Shavashram and affiliated to the Ramakrishna mission. So not only that, he also appealed for funds, and after his death, his famous disciple Sister Nivedita raised funds, and through all this, they were able to get a new building, which is in its current location in 1900, with 6 wards and 3 isolation wards, and in total about 46 patients could be accommodated. So now, so this is one example of a specifically medical mission hospital. So now this particular thing itself has grown to a 230 bedded hospital, a sprawling campus of 13 acres with all latest gadgetry and infrastructure. And beyond this, overall, as a mission, Ramakrishna Mission all over India runs several hospitals, mobile medical units, nursing training institutes, continuing the tradition which was started during the colonial period. So, moving on to the other side, the western side. So, we take Bombay Presidency. There are several such examples, doing different organizations doing different kinds of works. So, for instance, the Arya Mahila Samaj, founded by women reformers, focused among other things on women's and children's health. So, they did services like providing free milk and to mothers and babies to enhance their health, and also personal attention to them, advice to them, exhorting them about the importance of taking care of babies, especially in the early days and weeks of birth. And the Hind Mahila Samaj is another women's organization which again organized classes in hygiene, nursing, and first aid. The famous Servants of India Society for Bombay Presidency. So, it again, among its other social work, also focused particularly on sanitary activities. And in the presidency, Bombay Presidency, there were Seva Sadans in different locations like Ahmednagar, Pune, elsewhere. So, they ran maternity homes, female dispensaries, and welfare centers. Then there was this specific society called the Bombay Presidency Infant Welfare Society, which was established in 1921, specifically with the aim of promoting infant welfare, so giving information and aid to pregnant mothers and helping particularly during childbirth. And they also maintained infant welfare centers. All of these together greatly helped in bringing down the infant mortality rates. So, not only these kinds of specifically social service oriented society, but sometimes even literary societies also could contribute in their own ways to the health sector, to issues of health. So, for instance, in the Hindi heartland in Varanasi, the Kasi Nagara Pracharni Sabha, Nagari Pracharni Sabha was started. So, basically to promote writings in the Nagari script on various subjects. So, this Sabha instituted an award in 1916 for the best book written generally on science, but the award itself was named after someone who was a medical practitioner and one of the founders of the Sabha. So, Chanulal, so it was the Chanulal award. But it was used as an effective platform, particularly for promoting Western medical books in Hindi. Then there was again in Varanasi, there was this other association, the Health Improving Association, which was established in 1921 by a group of educated youth. And so the aim was to create awareness about good health and also training fit and muscular youth for building a healthy nation. So, by this time, because of all the various colonial depictions of the emasculated and weak nature of Indians, those kinds of depictions also, on the one hand, they produce the internalization of those things, so people themselves feeling weak, but at the same time, there are also efforts to rectify and come out of it, and then this also was part of the emerging nationalist spirit. So, this attention on the body building So locating that nationalism in the body itself and its characteristics, it's like virility, muscularity and strength. So healthy people, healthy bodies were needed for building a healthy nation. So that kind of consciousness, and all of these associations also show how Western medicine and its ideas of sanitary requirements, hygiene, maternal health, infant health and all that had greatly influenced. So first of all, so these people, these youth have to be influenced in order to be able to influence the populace at large. So that is something you have to note. And the field of nursing in particular benefited from many of such initiatives with these kinds of organizations. So for instance, again in the Bombay Presidency, Ramabai Ranade's Seva Sadan, so in its effort to help Brahmin widows to be self-reliant, it opened a school for training of nurses in 1911 so that those ladies could be trained and they could stand on their own legs through entering the nursing profession. And similarly, Matru Seva Sangh established in Nagpur in 1921 by two eminent social workers. So they also offered general nurse training in association with the Dufferin hospitals to assist women, and again, especially here also to assist widows to earn a living. And coming down south in the 1930s, training in nursing and midwifery was provided for destitute women at the Avai home in Madras, which was established by the famous Tamil doctor and politician Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy. Two other important names which are inseparable generally from women's liberation, women's rights, women's education, and the colonial period, and but particularly with regard to medicine also. So the Women's India Association WIA and All India Women's Conference AIWC, these were organizations, but of course they were started by European women, but they had predominant presence of Indian women. So these two organizations were advocating a variety of women's causes, particularly related to education. With regard to health, they were particularly worried about the high rates of maternal and infant maternity. This is high rates of maternal and infant mortality. Sorry about the mistake. So they canvass for better provisions for maternal and infant welfare. So the WIA was founded in 1917 in Adayar, which is in Madras. So this was by Annie Besant. The AIWC was started in 1927 by Margaret Cousins, an Irish lady. In fact, inspired by a couple of articles she read in the Sri Dharma, which was the monthly magazine of the WIA. So they work for the creation of awareness about the problems of early marriage or child marriage. In particularly the Delhi Women's League, which was the Delhi branch of AIWC, had mobilized support for the Sarda Bill. So what's the Sarda Bill? So it's basically something passed as an act. So the actual name was the Child Marriage Restraint Act. So the bill was passed as an act in 1929, so which fixed the age of marriage for girls at 14 and for boys at 18. So it's called the Sarda Bill after the Sarda Act, after the sponsor of the bill, which is Harbilas Sarda. And so the association formed the Sarda Committee to register all marriages of small children and to send warning letters to parents pointing out the evils of child marriage, and also to alert them to the kinds of problems they will get because of the enactment of the Sharda Act, so the kinds of penal provisions that are there, which they should be aware of, be cautious. The AIWC also propagated its messages through its general journal in the sense it had a variety of articles on a variety of subjects. So, Roshni, so during the colonial era, it was the first series, it was published from 1939 to 1945. And interestingly, they also started something which was very innovative for that period, because now we are talking about mobile health clinics and all that. So, as early as 1946, they started a van service for rendering health assistance to rural areas near Bombay, and at that time itself it was such a hit, and it was replicated in 5 other provinces by the year 1950. So, both of them, AIWC and WIA, campaigned also another important area, which was birth control, and they passed resolutions in that regard during the 1930s. So, they called upon the local branches of the respective associations to open contraceptive clinics and to disseminate information about contraceptions, the methods, the tools available, because they were very concerned that all the good work that they are doing generally with regards to improving women's condition, all of that would come to naught if women were rendered weak by repeated pregnancies, and therefore unable to use or even enter the various new avenues that were sought to be opened for them. Interestingly, such issues were also taken up by broader social reform and even political movements. So, one good example is the self-respect movement in the Madras Presidency, which among its other broader works took up birth control as an important area. So, the movement as such, the self-respect movement, was started in the early 20th century in the Madras Presidency to challenge caste system and Brahminical domination of society by promoting rationalism, self-respect, and social justice. So, according to the self-respect movement, contraception was of immense importance for individuals to achieve personal emancipation. So, it was a common custom for this movement to conduct self-respect marriages. So, basically, which meant that they didn't use Brahmin priests, because as the movement itself was very much directed against Brahminical domination and their presence. So, these kinds of marriages were presided over and officiated by the local self-respect movement leaders. So, these were not just marriages. So, these were huge social gatherings featuring speeches by not only the person who is presiding, but even other local and prominent figures of the movement, even from outside. So, during such speeches on these wedding occasions, the speakers regularly address the importance of contraception for achieving happy married life. So, after all, it's a marriage, wedding function, and how contraception could be fruitfully followed by the couple. So, not only it's a matter of the couple who are getting married, so it's also an important foundation for a good society. So, basically, so the idea is that contraception, which meant that you are waiting for a few years instead of the normal set orthodoxy. So, this sets after the marriage, and from the 8th month, so people start asking, oh, nothing is happening, what is happening? So, that kind of orthodoxy. So, you have to, that's a set groove. So, instead of necessarily following in that groove, so take your time and think about it, and then you do a lot of self-discovery, greater understanding between the couple, and different kinds of explorations, equations, and that's a kind of that itself is liberating, rather than getting enslaved into that beaten track. So, another kind of a liberation. So, and it's also part of the solution to problems of poverty and other related disabilities. So, so we see like the kinds of social reform movements, the kinds of organizations. So apart from the other kinds of organizations we already saw, like missionaries. So so as I said, this is just a small sampling, but already we get an idea of the kind of works they were doing on various fronts, from the direct handling of the sick and from the nursing and for training for that, or training of doctors, to even issues of general nutrition, health, baby feeding, baby's health, to up to even contraception. So, so which itself shows the kind of breadth that medicine had acquired. So we have been from time to time talking about medicalization. So you see how different fields had become medicalized. So what earlier would have been private matters like the age of marriage and uh, having or avoidance of sex, all that. So now become medical matters, and not only that. So people beyond the field of medicine are also involving themselves in several different ways. And also these go to show, because the broader topic is about the role of non-state players. So this is a tradition that we still continue. So of course the state has a huge role to play, but then this also shows that there are so many other players and there are so many other ways in which issues related to health directly, and other issues contributing to good health of both individuals as well as the society and nation can be addressed. So on that note, we will close this lecture and meet another one. Thank you.